1937 AD. Look at this inventor working in his bicycle shop in 1878. His long hair occasionally falls in his eyes. He shakes it aside impatiently, flexes sinewy arms against the pull of a wrench, biting his lip with preoccupation. Now and then he may pause to sip some of the cool lemonade his widowed mom has brought to him, sip and glance up at the picture of Sam Franklin on the whitewashed plank wall. Such an inventor was Emil Hart. He and his mother shared a small cottage exactly in the center of the state of Kiowa. One day, Fenton Morbs, the town bully, stopped by. Seeing the great engine spread over the entire shop, he whistled with amazement.
What you doing?
I'm only filling a bit of isinglass.
I mean, what you're building.
I'm building a temporal extrapolator. It will enable me to go in the future.
What? Nobody can go in the future. Hey, answer me. What? You're not answering me? Even if it works, this here engine won't bring enough to feed your piffles, let alone play the mortgage when my pa comes around to foreclose.
Foreclose!
Yep, you'd better have $100 ready by next Monday. Tell you what, if you'll wash my bicycle, I'll give you a whole dollar. Get it spanking clean now, for I'm gonna go to a picnic today with Miss Maud Peed. Oh, I knew you'd been kinda sweet on her. But she ain't got no time for a crazy feller what putters around her bicycle shop with time engines. Ha!
In a moment, he had made his decision. He would go into tomorrow. He would see 1937 AD, that promised land, the very system of numbering our years promised it. He would drink in its wonders, flying machines, the bridge across the English Channel, immortality through mesmerism, electric cannon, a world at peace where the sun never set on the flag of the United States of Colombia.
Are you gonna stand gawking at that picture, or are you gonna wash my wheel?
Neither. You can take yourself off my property at once. Go tell Maud Peed and tell her that the best man has won. I wish you both a happy future. I'm tired of no one believing me. I will see the year 1937 and I will go to the future.
A few moments later.
Hey, get off there! You're not to touch the exhibits, understand?
Before the bewildered inventor could explain, he found himself outside the shop, looking up at a brass plaque which read, "The Emil Hart Historical Museum." He was historical! He was depressed by the time he reached the end of the town's single street and the public library. Despairing of seeing any more wonderful inventions like the trackless locomotive, Emil made his way into the familiar building to the tiny room marked Science and Technology. Here at last he might find respite from the past. Here he might find the future that seemed to have overlooked his town. He opened a volume marked Inventions. Yes, here they were. Thomas Alva Edison, the electric light. Burgess Venn, the flying machine. Gordon Cumat, the television. What in the world was that?
Hello, Emil.
You used my machine?
Yep, I came back to get my bicycle clips, and I seen you was gone. Well, I got you thinking. A fella could make himself a pile of money out of knowing what happens in the future. So here I am. Where do they keep the old newspapers?
What are you going to do?
Read about a few horses races and some stock market stuff. I'm rich now, Emil, but I'm gonna be richer.
You can't! It's dishonest. Think of all the little stockholders who might be ruined by your speculations.
Leave me alone. I'll do as I fit. Yes, do leave him alone. I'm trying to read here, and you're creating a disturbance. Lad, where's the newspaper? You know, the Wall Street Journal. I don't know. All they have in here is this. But this will have whatever you're looking for. Universal synopsis. It has a synopsis of everything. Say, if I get rich like I ought to, there should be something about me in that book. Here it is. Morms Fenton Jr.
Don't read on. We're not supposed to know our own futures.
Stop! Who's to stop me?
I am.
Emil shouted, and snatching up the boy's pen, dipped it and lined out the passage the Morb was about to read.
Say, why'd you do that? How interesting. I was right then. This is the only exact copy.
What?
You don't know what happened? That was the Doppler effect. Name for myself, Julius Doppler. Sit down, won't you, and I'll explain it to you. You see, I've developed a theory that the future influences the past. I was fortunate in finding the universal synopsis on which to test it. If this were, as I believed it to be, the only copy of the only book in which many items appeared, why then it follows that I can change the past by merely rewriting it.
But how can you change history?
It's simple semantics. The word is the thing, at least after the thing ceases to be. Alter a word in the future, and you alter the thing it once stood for. Let me show you. Now, here. I altered the name Sam Franklin to John Franklin. For example, if in the future someone came along and changed it to, say, Ben, why, he'd be Ben, don't you see?
No.
Alright, look here. This is the map of the United States. There was a familiar pink lozenge that was Kiowa, and just above it, the green hourglass of Minnehaha. But the names were wrong. Kiowa missed its K, and Minnehaha read Minnesota. And the name at the bottom of the page following the United States of was not Columbia, but some unpronounceable Latin name. The map was wrong. It had been printed wrong. Last week, I made these changes in ink. Now this week, they're part of the original book.
But how can that be?
I think the past must influence the future too, but the influence is slower. My theory is really quite a simple one, but I couldn't possibly explain it to you. Not all of it. Why, you don't even understand E equals MC3 for Pete's sake.
I understand one thing. I know that I killed poor Morbs. I am a murderer.
Don't take it so hard. You wouldn't have, if it weren't for me. In fact, the only reason you're a time traveler is because I wrote the whole thing in the margin near your name.
My name? My name? Won't you have a cookie?
The two of them munched cookies and discussed the theory once more until Emil was sure he understood. When the last cookie was gone, Emil rose and took his leave. He strolled back to the museum and paid his admission. After a few moments, he was able to seize an opportunity when the guard was not looking and leap upon his time engine. He pedaled furiously backwards to 1878, and what a glorious feeling mounted in his breast as he gazed once more on the homely features of John Franklin.
A few moments later.
I am healthy, wealthy, and wise, or shall be shortly. My rival is gone, and I don't even remember his name. And I am to be famous.
After changing to his Sunday clothes, he picked up a nosegay of his mom's flowers and set off toward the Peed house. Mr. Peed was sitting in his porch swing, industrially polishing his pipe against his nose.
Hello, young heart. What brings you out on this evening all dressed up like that?
Emil began, then realized he did not know the answer. Why had he come to see Mr. and Mrs. Peed?
Flowers for your wife, from my mom's garden.
Whose wife? I ain't married, son.
Peed's outstretched hand grew transparent. Then Peed, porch, and house vanished with a click. It was a nightmare. Emil hurried home to check on his mom. There was no telling who might click out of existence next. He was reassured by the sight of her frail old figure tottering into his shop with a tray.
Here, let me take that. Lemonade and cookies for me? Gee, you're good, Mom.
With a beatific smile, the old lady tottered back to her kitchen, whence came the smell of fresh baking. Fearfully, Emil watched until she was out of sight. Then, seeing his duty clearly, he once more mounted the time engine and began to pedal. He cornered Julius in the library and demanded an explanation.
Of what? An explanation of what?
I'm not sure, but I think the Peeds had a daughter, and I think I was in love with her. Now she's gone, and they're gone. Have you been editing again?
You did it yourself, Paul. When you crossed out the reference to Fenton, what's his name, you also destroyed the only existence reference to this girl, Maud. She was his wife. You got any more cookies?
You mean I'd have lost her in any case?
Uh-huh.
Emil was brought to understand that he had lost the only girl he'd ever loved. His grief was superb.
Here, read this. It'll cheer you up.
It was the volume Hart Herapix, and in it, Emil read, Hart Emil, inventor of the time engine and only successful time traveler. Leaving 1878, he journeyed into 1937, where, in a public library, he met Julius Doppler, who explained to him the famed Doppler effect, the influence of the future upon the past. After several blunders, Hart finally read his own story in the Universal Synopsis, and realized as he did so that he had read it earlier. He might have avoided making a costly mistake, the deletion of some probably mythical woman from history. As he realized all this, Hart is reported to have said,
Thunderation! Why didn't I think of that before?
He referred not to his past mistakes, however, but to his successes yet to come. Borrowing the pen from Julius, who had just changed the peaful to a chicken, Emil wrote in the margin the following. Nonplussed, the stout-hearted inventor recreated his girl, Hazel Page, from memory, adding her to his own story. After a brief courtship, they married. The plucky Hart went on to become healthy, wealthy, and wise. After a moment of thought, he added, and nothing anyone writes here in the future will ever make it otherwise. Thus, giving Julius the last cookie, he departed. She was there in his shop, the lovely Hazel Page of the hazel hair and eyes, just as he remembered her. Going upon one knee and tossing back his unruly lock, Emil said,
Miss Pede, will you be my wife?
Oh, yes!
This calls for a celebration. Won't you have some lemonade and cookies? Emil and his fiancée embraced, while above them, the rheumy eyes of Ben Franklin seemed to smile a blessing.